And thank you for coming out. I'm Sheriff John Rutherford, and I'm joined here today by Dominic Pape, the Special Agent in charge of the Jacksonville office of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and our State Attorney for the 4th Judicial Circuit, Angela Corey. We also have FBI Agent Tony Shabbat with us. Thank you, Tony, for coming over. And Chief Mike Williams. And I'm going to ask Angela to introduce her staff, who I have to tell you were incredibly instrumental in the success of the prosecution under the RICO statute, as well as our friends from the statewide prosecutors who actually worked on the 103rd Street, well, I guess I should point over here, the 103rd Street gang, and that is, and if you'll just raise your hand, Kelly Eckley and Chris Floyd. Chris, thank you all for coming out too. Angela, talk
Sheriff,
about prosecution.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, Sheriff, and talk about the collaborative effort that we had not only with law enforcement and all of the people on this stage and our statewide prosecutor, but within our own office. RICO is probably one of the toughest things we do as prosecutors, and it is lengthy, it is involved, and it involves a series of sub-trials within a trial. So 8 of our prosecutors banded together and started with the Sheriff's Office to do the takedowns on these gang RICO prosecutions and then carry these cases through this entire 18-month period. And I'd like to introduce you to 5 of them right now. Matt O'Keefe, who took the lead on this. Mark Khalil, who knew many of these people and was already prosecuting several of them for violent crimes. Rich Manti, Rich Commando, and Steve Bledsoe. And there were several others who jumped in to help, not the least of which was Representative Mike Weinstein. When he was here prosecuting, helped tremendously in the beginning. So it was our pleasure to work on this case. It took a lot of time and effort, but we really think the results have been worth it. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Angela. We're really announcing today the significant prison sentences that have been recently ordered on 20 of these individuals in our community who were members of these 2 gangs, the 45th Street Gang and the 103rd Street Gang. And were really dismantled back in 2009, and whose members were prosecuted, as you heard, under the Racketeering and Influence Corrupt Organizations Statute. Now, just to give you a little background on the gangs, the 103rd Street, you can see these 7 individuals here. They were the focus of the RICO prosecution. Our investigators worked with the statewide prosecutor's office, as I mentioned earlier, Kelly and Chris, to prosecute these individuals, mainly because some of their criminal activities, the predicates, actually occurred outside of Duval County. So we needed to bring in the statewide prosecutor so that we could also cover those crimes that were occurring outside of Duval County. And those all included sale and possession of drugs, weapon offenses, armed robbery, burglary, vehicle burglaries, grand theft, and aggravated battery. And you all already have the archives of our announcement on the 7 arrests back in March and April of 2009, both here, Clay County, and up in Kingsland, Georgia, if you remember when we made those arrests. There were 31 members of this gang, and they were charged with 204 felonies and 221 misdemeanors. 21 guns seized through that operation. So you can see that was a very violent, very active gang, and in fact, they pulled several hotel robberies before they were captured. The second criminal enterprise that was prosecuted, as you heard, by the 4th Judicial Circuit and Angela Corey's people, this was a large group that really had been under investigation since 2007, and utilizing the strengthened gang statute that was changed in 2008, we were able to go in and arrest 13 of these members in November of 2009 using that statute to take down really the worst of this group. Total charges for the 50 members of this gang, 268 felony charges, 397 misdemeanor charges, 26 firearms seized, So that was a significant success. They admitted to retaliation of rival gang members when interviewed by some of our investigators. And so that's really why we're here today. All the RICO trials are concluded and sentencing has occurred. These boards that will show you, gives you some idea of the prison sentences that these fellows are facing. You'll note Terry Smith, who committed the triple murder back in June of 2007, is not listed up here. Trust me, he's got problems a lot worse than RICO. But we got him for he was also part of this group, and committed the triple homicide back in June of 2007, and he's being prosecuted for that now. I wanted to highlight for you today two important facts. That these gang investigations are labor-intensive and extremely dangerous, but they truly net us some great outcomes. We focus on the leadership, the ones most likely to be involved in running that criminal enterprise out there, and in removing them through arrest and aggressive prosecution, utilizing the RICO statute whenever and wherever practical. The partnership between local, state, and federal, I cannot say enough about that and the importance of that in a successful RICO prosecution and getting these two gangs off the street. The importance of these arrests, you can see now on the 103rd Street gang, you can see we had a 1.74% reduction in violent crime in that outlined area. Now that's a very large area on the west side. So the impact may appear to be minimal, 8.29% reduction in property crime. That may appear minimal, but when you consider that there were areas right next to that where crime actually went up, that was pretty significant. However, on the 45th Street gang prosecution and arrest, you can see, because they had a much smaller and more defined area, a 36.7% reduction in violent crime and an 8.14% reduction in property crime. And so they were very active in a very small area, and you know, it's clear why these prosecutions are so important to keeping this community safe. I think this is part of what's led to some of the lowest crime statistics we've seen since 1983, lowest homicide numbers in 3 decades. And in fact, this year, I looked yesterday, and I don't know if you're up on these numbers yet, but this is amazing. Last year, year-to-date, or yesterday, year-to-date, we had 25 murders in Jacksonville. Yesterday, year-to-date for this year, we had 15. So that's an almost 50% reduction in homicide so far this year. And I'm convinced that a lot of that is because these 20 guys and others like them are not out there on the street. They are truly facing tough, aggressive prosecution. And I wouldn't want to go to court against any of these guys because they are truly, truly making these folks pay for their crime. So thank you, and I will throw it open for questions.
Sheriff, I'm trying to understand the time frame here. Did all these arrests happen in 2009, and then the prosecution just happened now, and the prosecution just happened in recent days, and the convictions, or?
Well, the arrests have occurred over a period of time, but the investigations started. Some of these investigations started back in 2007.
But the convictions have just happened?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's, Scott, that just gives you a little idea how difficult putting these cases together is.
And you
I mean, it's literally been an 18-month prosecution just after the case is made, not including the time that they spent, you know, making the case.
And I just wanted to be clear, I'm sorry, you had 31 members of that gang, 50 members here. Why these ones on the boards of the total?
Because these are the ones that we went after with RICO, okay, out of these gangs. And they faced RICO charges in addition to, you know, other criminal charges that was involved in the criminal enterprise, the robberies and burglaries and those sorts of things.
What kind of jail sentences are we looking at time-wise?
Well, just to give you a couple here, 30 years for Bud Haney, 20 years for Donnell Carter, 12 years for Derek Kirkland, and it goes, you know, it goes right on down. Some got, you know, a few years just a few years in state prison and then some probation. It all depended on their involvement in the criminal enterprise, the depth of their involvement.
Maybe, I'm not sure, maybe Angela, you can talk a little bit more about what actually goes into prosecuting these RICO cases, how tough it is.
It's extensive, and we rely greatly on law enforcement to help us continue to put these cases together. The cases are interwoven to a certain extent, but it reminds me, we talked about this right after we started working on this, it's kind of the Al Capone theory. In a sense, if you can't get them on the real serious charge, put them together in this and go after them as an enterprise and get them on something that's not the actual main substantive charge. Now, some of them we continue to prosecute for the murders and the robberies, but others were brought in just because they were members of the gang. Some of them were identified by things as simple as a tattoo. Remember, one of their uncles called me on a radio show one time and said, they just picked my nephew up and it's only because he had a tattoo. And I thought, no, the tattoo is just symbolic of his involvement in one of these gangs. And it's sort of a stunning crime. People really can't believe that we have this on the books. But I would have to say that outside of our 1020 life laws and our death penalty, our strongest tool to prosecute and put away the people that are terrorizing this community is our racketeering. Agreed, gentlemen? I think it is. And this group worked extremely hard putting these together. So what you end up doing, Catherine, is you end up having to try a bunch of mini trials that are connected to the gang activity. So even something as simple as a breach of the peace could form the basis as a predicate act if it's related to the gang activity. And so it's extensive and it was very involved, and they worked so hard on it in addition to handling all their other caseloads, murders and appeals and everything else. They worked very hard on this, and I'm proud of all of them and of course our effort with law enforcement.
Sheriff, the 45th Street gang saw 37% reduction. The people in that area, of your officers, noticed a mood change of the people in the area at all? Do you know?
Yeah, I'll tell you, in fact, we have. In fact, if you look at the JCCI Quality of Life report, one of the things that you'll see is there was a 10% gap, or I'm sorry, a 10% increase in the number of people in the African American community that said they felt safe in their neighborhood. That's a result of these kind of operations. Now, not just this, but other things as well. So, yeah, I think if you go into these communities, they'll tell you they feel a difference, and that's important. You know, another important part of this is we can't do this alone. It takes local, state, and federal all working together. And Dominic, I'm going to ask Dominic Pape from FDLE to say a word as well.
Thank you, Sheriff. I mean, number one, I want to thank Sheriff John Rutherford and Angela Corey, of course, being the leadership of this operation. Again, you look at 26 guns seized. The question I have is how many murders could they have occurred with those 26 guns in our community? And again, they may be living and committing crimes in this county, but then when are they going to go to the next county, the next county? So every time we do a great operation like this, it in fact impacts the whole state. Because we also send a message that if you're going to be in a gang, if you're going to do this type of crimes, be prepared to do some time. Because that's what you're going to get. And again, going to quality of life, reducing violent crime by 36.7%, it has to increase the quality of life for those people that have to live there. And again, there's a lot of great people that live in those orange squares now, I think, can at least sleep a little bit better since 26 guns are off and a whole bunch of reduction in violent crime.
Yeah, I'll mention one other thing that is very important, and that was the toughening of the gang statutes by the legislature back in 2008, which that gave us the ability to certify more gang members than we'd ever had certified before. And the importance of that is you can't go after them with RICO if they're not certified. And so we've won an easy process to certify these gang members.
Are there still more members in any of these gangs, or do you feel you have all of them off the street?
Oh no, they're still out there. In fact, the 103rd Street boys, there were actually 31 that we knew of, and we only got 7. There were 50 of these, and we got 13. So no, there's still some out there, but we're coming after them.
I want to follow up on that. You say you know of 50, but you got 13?
Right.
Why not all 50?
we couldn't tie them to a criminal enterprise. And you know, it depends on what they're doing.
Sheriff, is the statute what changed? Because I know you said some of the investigations began in 2007. And at the same time, when the Jacksonville journey was going on, you and some of the members of your staff were saying there wasn't a gang problem in Jacksonville. Explain the difference.
Well,
How did that move forward?
well, 2007 is when the 103rd Street started. And look, we've never said that we don't have gangs. What I've said is we don't have a gang problem like LA, like Chicago, like, you know, like other major metropolitan areas that, you know, where people think about gangs. We have neighborhood groups like this. We don't have national gangs like the Bloods and the Crips and, you know, those kind of groups coming in here. We've got these local neighborhood, you know, I call them neighborhood gangs. And now that they don't have to have some national structure or national tag, we can go after them better with the current law.
What's the date on the crime reduction? Or is this
That's for 2010.
from the start of, from 2009 to 2010?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Comparatively. 9 compared to, or 10 compared to 9, I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
Right.
Anything to add?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you all. And thanks to you prosecutors. Keep up the good work, guys.